The obsidian hull of the Bloodseeker cut through the void like a blade through silk, its bioluminescent markings pulsing with the rhythm of a predator's heartbeat. Captain Vex stood on the command deck, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical display. With the practiced ease of someone who had hunted across 1,000 worlds. The Keth Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 3 millennia, and in all that time, they had never encountered prey that could not be broken. Target acquired, Captain, reported Lieutenant Kane, his scaled fingers dancing across the neural interface. 3rd planet from the star. Primitive technology, but significant population density. The scans indicate approximately 7 billion specimens. Vex's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. 7 billion. The arena masters on Keth Prime would be pleased. Fresh blood always drew the largest crowds, and the Empire's appetite for new gladiatorial entertainment seemed insatiable. The last species they had harvested, the Terran Federation had called them. The Altarians had lasted barely 2 seasons before extinction. The crowds were growing restless. Biological composition? Vex inquired, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had overseen the capture of 47 different species. Carbon-based, bipedal, average height 1.7 meters. They call themselves humans in their dominant language. No natural armor or weapons to speak of, Captain. Their technology appears to be roughly equivalent to our ancestral period projectile. Weapons, crude aircraft, basic orbital capability. Vex's secondary eyes focused on the blue-green world rotating slowly on the display. Earth, the locals called it. Such an unremarkable name for what would soon become another hunting ground. The Keth had perfected the art of species harvesting over millennia. First came the observation phase, then the initial raids to test defenses, followed by systematic collection of the strongest specimens. The weak would be left to breed, ensuring a steady supply for future hunts. Initiate Protocol 7, Vex commanded. Deploy hunting pods to major population centers. I want live specimens from their military castes first. The arena masters prefer prey that can at least pretend to fight. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Across the ship, biomechanical systems hummed to life as the hunting apparatus engaged. Drop pods shaped like metallic teardrops began launching from the vessel's belly, each one carrying a hunting party of 12 Keth warriors. Their destination, the planet's major military installations. As the first pods penetrated Earth's atmosphere, Vex allowed himself a moment of anticipation. The thrill of the hunt never grew old, even after centuries of practice. There was something almost artistic about the way fear transformed prey species. The initial defiance, the desperate scrambling for survival, the eventual resignation, it was a symphony he had conducted countless times. The first reports came in within the hour. The hunting parties had landed successfully and engaged the local military forces. Initial resistance was minimal, as expected. The humans' primitive weapons could barely penetrate Keth armor, and their tactics were straightforward and predictable. Within 3 days, the first batch of specimens would be en route to the arena worlds, but as Vex monitored the battlefield reports, something nagged at him. The humans were not behaving like typical prey. Where other species had fled in terror at first contact, these creatures seemed to be regrouping. Their military units were not scattering, but instead falling back to defensive positions, coordinating their responses with a level of organization that seemed unusual for a species encountering superior technology for the first time. Captain, Lieutenant Kane's voice carried a note of confusion. Hunting Party 7 is reporting ... complications. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Sci-Fi stellar conflict is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you're hungry for HFY battles and tales of human valor against alien might, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring these front lines to you. Vex's attention sharpened. Complications were rare in the hunting business. Most species required only a show of force to surrender their strongest members. Elaborate. The humans have adapted their tactics. They're using improvised explosive devices, coordinating ambushes and employing what appears to be asymmetric warfare. 3 of our hunters have been ... injured. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Keth warriors had not suffered casualties during a harvesting operation in over 2 centuries. Their armor was impervious to primitive weapons, their reflexes honed by millennia of evolution as apex predators. Yet somehow, these hairless bipeds had managed to wound trained killers. "Show me," Vex commanded. The main display shifted to show helmet camera footage from the surface. A Keth hunting party moved through what appeared to be an urban environment, their bioluminescent markings dimmed to avoid detection. The humans had evacuated the area, leaving behind empty buildings and abandoned vehicles. It seemed like a standard sweep until the explosion. The improvised device had been hidden in a ground transport, triggered remotely as the hunting party passed. The blast had not penetrated the lead hunter's armor, but the concussive force had stunned him long enough for human soldiers to emerge from concealment and open fire with concentrated volleys. While their bullets could not kill a Keth warrior, the sustained assault had found weak points in the armor joints, causing the first recorded injury of the campaign. Vex watched the footage with growing interest rather than concern. Perhaps this species would prove more entertaining than usual. The arena crowds did enjoy a challenge, and humans seemed capable of providing at least some resistance. It would make the eventual conquest all the more satisfying. "Double the hunting parties," he ordered, "and activate the heavy armor protocols. If these humans wish to play at war, we shall accommodate them." The captain returned his attention to the blue world below, unaware that he had just made the greatest miscalculation in Keth history. The humans were not simply prey that had learned to bite back. They were something the Keth had never encountered before, a species that thrived on conflict, that grew stronger under pressure, and that possessed an innate understanding of warfare that would soon turn the galaxy's most feared predators into the hunted. The ruins of what had once been called Denver smoldered in the morning light, but Colonel Jake Harris felt no despair as he surveyed the devastation. 3 weeks had passed since the first alien ships had appeared in Earth's skies, and humanity had learned more about warfare in that time than in the previous century combined. The enemy called themselves the Keth, and they had made their first critical error. They had underestimated human adaptability. "Sir, we have movement on the eastern perimeter," reported Sergeant Lisa Park, her voice crackling through the cum. "System. Looks like another hunting party, 12 hostiles, same formation as before." Harris smiled grimly. The Keth were predictable in their arrogance. They approached each engagement with the same tactics, the same overwhelming confidence. That had apparently served them well against other species. But humans were different. Where other civilizations might have relied on superior technology or natural advantages, humanity had learned to survive through cunning, cooperation, and an almost supernatural ability to turn weakness into strength. "Acknowledged. Activate Plan Delta," Harris responded. "All units, remember your training. Let them come to us." The Keth hunting party moved through the rubble with predatory grace, their bioluminescent markings providing an almost hypnotic display of alien beauty. Each warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, their chitinous armor gleaming in the filtered sunlight. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their superiority, certain that the primitive humans would flee before their approach. They had not yet learned that humans rarely fled. When cornered, the first sign of trouble came when the lead hunter stepped on what appeared to be a piece of concrete debris. The pressure plate triggered a daisy chain of explosions that had been carefully positioned throughout the ruins. The Keth armor absorbed the blast, but the concussive force disrupted their formation and activated their threat detection systems. "Multiple contacts, bearing unknown," the lead hunter reported to his squad in the clicking language of his people. "Maintain formation. These primitives cannot harm us." The second explosion came from above. Human engineers had spent sleepless nights studying the wreckage of downed Keth equipment, learning that their sensors had a blind spot directly overhead. The improvised charges, dropped from modified construction drones, struck the hunting party with perfect timing. Still, the Keth armor held. It was the third phase of the assault that changed everything. As the alien hunters struggled to regain their formation, human soldiers emerged from concealment positions that had been prepared days in advance. But these were not the same frightened defenders the Keth had faced in their initial raids. These humans had learned. "Focus fire on the joint articulations," Harris commanded over the tactical network. "Sustained bursts, coordinated timing. Remember, we're not trying to kill them, we're trying to slow them down. The human assault was unlike anything the Keth had encountered in their millennia of hunting. Instead of panic fire or desperate charges, the humans demonstrated a level of tactical coordination that spoke of natural military instinct. They moved as a single organism, each soldier playing their part in a larger strategy that the Keth could not immediately comprehend. Armor-piercing rounds, carefully crafted from salvaged alien materials, found their marks with increasing accuracy. The Keth warriors began to experience something they had not felt in centuries: genuine concern for their survival. Their armor was failing, their formation was breaking down, and the primitive humans were displaying a level of tactical sophistication that defied their initial intelligence assessments. "Fall back to extraction point," the lead hunter commanded, his voice tight with something that might have been fear. "Request immediate support." But the humans had anticipated this as well. The extraction point had been mined, the surrounding area turned into a kill zone that would have impressed the greatest military minds in human history. As the Keth warriors attempted to retreat, they found themselves caught in a web of interlocking fields of fire, improvised obstacles, and coordinated assault patterns that seemed to predict their every move. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 3 Keth warriors lay dead in the ruins of Denver, their supposedly impenetrable armor breached by human ingenuity and determination. The remaining hunters had been forced to call for emergency evacuation, their confidence shattered by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive prey. Aboard the Bloodseeker, Captain Vex stared at the casualty reports with something approaching disbelief. 3 dead. In 6 hours of combat against technologically inferior opponents, humanity had accomplished what no other species had managed in over 2 millennia of Keth expansion. "Analysis," he commanded, his voice carrying an edge that had not been there before. "The humans are learning at an unprecedented rate," reported Lieutenant Kane. "They're adapting their tactics between engagements, sharing information across their military networks, and developing countermeasures faster than our tactical computers can process. Sir, I believe we may have encountered something unusual." Vex's mandibles clicked in frustration. The arena masters were expecting the first shipment of human specimens within the week. The hunting quotas had been set, the betting pools established. To report failure now would be to admit that the Keth Empire had finally encountered prey that could fight back effectively. "Deploy the heavy hunters," he ordered. "Full battle configuration. If these humans wish to play at war, we shall show them what real warfare looks like." What Captain Vex could not have known was that his decision to escalate had just activated humanity's greatest strength. Throughout history, humans had thrived when faced with superior enemies. They had learned to fight with stones against bronze, bronze against iron, and iron against steel. Now they would learn to fight with steel against star-spanning technology. In command centers across the globe, human military leaders were already adapting to the new threat level. The Keth had revealed more of their capabilities, and human engineers were working around the clock to develop countermeasures. The war was entering a new phase, one where the galaxy's apex predators would discover that they had chosen the wrong prey. The hunting season was about to become very dangerous indeed. General Patricia Stone stood in the reinforced bunker that had once been the Pentagon Situation Room, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing global tactical positions. 6 months had passed since the Keth invasion began, and the war had evolved in ways that would have been unimaginable to previous generations of military planners. The enemy had escalated their assault, deploying heavier weapons and more sophisticated hunting parties, but humanity had responded with something the Keth had never encountered: evolution in real time. "Ma'am, we're receiving reports from the Pacific Theater," announced Major Tom Blake, his voice carrying the exhaustion common to all military personnel since the war began. "The Manila Resistance Cell has successfully adapted the Sydney Protocol. They've managed to bring down another Keth heavy hunter." Stone nodded, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. The Sydney Protocol had been developed just 3 weeks ago by a team of Australian engineers who had studied the wreckage of downed Keth equipment. Within days, the technique had been transmitted to resistance cells worldwide, modified for local conditions, and deployed against enemy forces. The speed of human adaptation was proving to be humanity's greatest weapon. Casualty reports? Stone inquired. Minimal human losses, ma'am. The Keth are becoming predictable. The observation was both accurate and profoundly unsettling to any Keth commander who might have overheard it. For 3,000 years, the Keth Empire had dominated the galaxy through superior technology, overwhelming force, and psychological warfare. Their hunting tactics had been refined through the conquest of 47 different species, each campaign adding to their understanding of how to break enemy morale and resistance. But humans were different. Where other species had crumbled under the weight of Keth superiority, humanity had done something unprecedented. They had learned to fight back more effectively with each passing day. Every Keth tactical advantage was being systematically countered, every weapon system analyzed and defeated, every hunting strategy turned against its creators. The transformation was visible in the global resistance networks that had emerged seemingly overnight. From the frozen ruins of Moscow to the jungle canopies of the Amazon, human beings were sharing information, coordinating attacks, and developing new technologies with a speed that defied conventional understanding of how civilizations adapted to existential threats. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the lead engineer on the Alien Technology Analysis Project, entered the Situation Room carrying a tablet that contained humanity's latest breakthrough. Her team had been working for 72 hours straight, surviving on stimulants and determination, to crack the encryption on captured Keth communication systems. "General, we've done it," she announced, her voice hoarse but triumphant. "We've broken their primary communication protocol. We can now intercept their tactical communications in real time." Stone felt her pulse quicken. Intelligence was the lifeblood of warfare, and the ability to listen to enemy communications would provide a decisive advantage. But Dr. Vasquez's next words proved that humanity's adaptability extended far beyond mere technological reverse engineering. "That's not all, ma'am. We've also learned how to spoof their systems. We can now send false information directly to their command structure." The implications were staggering. In less than 6 months, humanity had not only learned to defend against an alien invasion, but had begun to turn the enemy's own systems against them. The Keth, who had spent millennia perfecting their art of domination, were now facing an opponent that could learn their secrets and exploit their weaknesses faster than they could adapt. Aboard the Bloodseeker, Captain Vex was experiencing something that no Keth commander had felt in recorded history: doubt. The tactical displays showed a situation that defied all previous experience. Human resistance was not weakening under sustained assault, it was growing stronger. Every hunting party sent to the surface faced increasingly sophisticated defenses, and the casualty reports were becoming a source of genuine concern. "Status report," Vex demanded, his voice carrying none of its previous confidence. "Sir, we've lost contact with hunting groups 7 through 12, reported Lieutenant Kane. Last transmission indicated they were facing coordinated human assault, using modified Keth weaponry. Modified Keth weaponry. The words hung in the air like an accusation. The humans had not merely learned to defend against Keth technology, they had learned to improve it. Engineering teams across Earth were working with salvaged alien equipment, but instead of simply copying existing designs, they were innovating, creating hybrid technologies that combined human ingenuity with Keth capabilities. "Impossible," Vex muttered, but even as he spoke, he knew that the impossible was becoming routine in this war. Deploy the siege platforms. Full orbital bombardment. If these humans wish to continue their resistance, we shall demonstrate the futility of opposing the Keth Empire. The decision to escalate to orbital bombardment was the second critical error in Keth strategic planning. The first had been underestimating human adaptability. The second was failing to understand that humans had been preparing for this possibility since the war began. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in facilities that had been constructed with unprecedented speed and efficiency, human scientists were putting the finishing touches on humanity's most ambitious project. The Global Defense Initiative had been conceived just 4 months ago, but human engineering capabilities, enhanced by captured alien technology, had turned concept into reality with breathtaking speed. "Orbital defense platforms are online," announced Dr. James Chun, the project's lead scientist. All systems are functioning within acceptable parameters. We're ready to test the theory that Keth shields can be penetrated by modulated energy frequencies. The test would come sooner than expected. As Keth siege platforms moved into bombardment position, they encountered the galaxy's first hybrid human-alien defense system. The engagement lasted 37 minutes and ended with 2 Keth capital ships disabled and drifting in Earth's orbit, their crews trapped aboard vessels that had been turned into prisons by their own security systems. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer merely defending itself. The species that the Keth had dismissed as primitive prey had learned to fight back with devastating effectiveness. The war was entering a new phase, one where the galaxy's apex predators would discover that they had awakened something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The hunt was about to become a war of extinction, and the Keth were no longer certain they would be the survivors. The Keth High Command had never convened an emergency session. In 3 millennia of galactic domination, there had never been a need. The Empire's military machine had functioned with clockwork precision, species after species falling before their superior technology and tactical doctrine. But the holographic display in the council chamber told a different story, now one of retreating fleets, failed hunting expeditions, and the unthinkable. Keth worlds under siege, Supreme Commander Reth stood before the assembled war council. His bioluminescent markings dim with exhaustion and something that might have been fear. The human conflict had been raging for 18 months, and what had begun as a simple harvesting operation had evolved into the greatest military crisis in Keth history. "The humans have taken the Altair station," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of defeat. "Our forces were overwhelmed by coordinated assault forces using hybrid technology that our tactical computers cannot adequately counter. They have captured not only the station but also the research vessels containing our biological warfare programs." The news struck the council like a physical blow. Altair station had been considered impregnable, protected by defensive systems that had been refined through centuries of warfare. The idea that primitive humans could not only assault but capture such a facility challenged every assumption about the nature of galactic power. "How?" demanded War Chief Kara, her mandibles clicking with agitation. "Their technology is inferior. Their numbers are limited. How do they continue to defeat our forces?" Commander Reth activated the tactical display, showing a 3-dimensional map of human expansion throughout the local star system. What the council saw defied comprehension. In less than 2 years, humanity had not only defended their homeworld, but had begun expanding outward, establishing military bases on asteroids, constructing shipyards in the void, and deploying fleets of hybrid vessels that combined human innovation with captured Keth technology. "They learn," Reth said simply. "Every engagement teaches them something new. Every piece of our technology they capture becomes the basis for innovation. They adapt faster than we can counter-adapt. And they fight with a coordination that suggests collective intelligence." The truth was more complex than mere collective intelligence. Humanity had developed something unprecedented in galactic history, a species-wide learning network that allowed tactical innovations to spread globally within hours. A breakthrough in ship design in Earth's Luna shipyards would be implemented by asteroid miners within days. A new weapon system developed in the African resistance would be deployed by Arctic forces before the week ended. But the most disturbing development was not humanity's technological advancement, it was their strategic thinking. The humans had done something that no other species had ever attempted. They had begun hunting the Keth. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Williams stood on the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's first fully operational war vessel. Built in the orbital shipyards above Earth, the ship represented the pinnacle of human engineering, augmented by alien technology. But more than its capabilities, the Retribution represented a change in human strategy. They were no longer simply defending, they were attacking. "Target acquired," reported Navigation Officer Mike Torres. "Keth supply convoy, bearing 27 Mark IV. 3 escort vessels, minimal defensive posture." Williams smiled with predatory satisfaction. The Keth had grown complacent during their millennia of dominance. Their supply lines were poorly defended, their patrol patterns predictable, their tactical responses limited by centuries of facing inferior opponents. But humanity had learned to exploit these weaknesses with surgical precision. Begin the hunt. She commanded. The engagement was over in 12 minutes. The human assault demonstrated everything the Keth had learned to fear about their former prey. The attack came from multiple vectors simultaneously, using tactics that seemed to anticipate every defensive maneuver. The escort vessels were disabled, with precision strikes that left them intact but helpless, while the supply convoy was captured with minimal damage to the cargo. But the most terrifying aspect of the assault was not its effectiveness, it was its purpose. The humans were not destroying Keth resources. They were stealing them. Every captured vessel, every piece of technology, every tactical database was being systematically analyzed, reverse-engineered, and improved upon. The Keth were not merely losing battles, they were funding their own defeat. Analysis complete, reported the ship's AI, a hybrid system that combined human intuition with Keth computational power. Convoy carried advanced sensor arrays, biological research samples, and tactical deployment schedules for Sector 7, transmitting data to Earth Command. Within hours, the captured intelligence would be processed by human analysts, integrated into tactical planning systems, and distributed to resistance cells throughout the galaxy. The Keth Empire's own logistical network was being turned against them, transformed into a web of intelligence that humanity was learning to exploit with increasing sophistication. Aboard the Bloodseeker, Captain Vex received the report of the convoy's capture with something approaching despair. The humans had not merely defeated the escort vessels, they had captured them intact, along with their crews. Interrogation was not a concept the Keth had needed to develop, but the humans had proven remarkably skilled at extracting information from captured warriors. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Kane, his voice tight with anxiety, "the humans have requested communication." The word was almost alien to Keth military doctrine. They had never negotiated with prey species, never acknowledged enemy legitimacy, never considered the possibility that their opponents might have something to offer besides surrender. But the tactical situation had changed so dramatically that traditional responses no longer applied. "Open the channel," Vex commanded, his voice carrying the weight of 3 millennia of shattered assumptions. The human who appeared on the display was unremarkable by Keth standards: average height, number, natural armor, no obvious weapons. But her eyes carried an intelligence that made Vex's bioluminescent markings flicker with unconscious recognition of a fellow predator. "Captain Vex," the human said, her voice carrying casual authority. "I am Admiral Sarah Chun, commander of the Terran Defense Force. I believe we have something to discuss." The conversation that followed would be remembered as the moment when the galaxy's apex predators realized they had become the hunted. The humans were not offering surrender, they were offering terms. The species that had been dismissed as primitive prey 6 months ago was now dictating the conditions of engagement to the empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. The hunt had become a war, the war had become a rout. And the Keth were learning that in the vast darkness of space, there were predators far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The orbital ring surrounding Earth gleamed in the reflected light of Sol, a monument to human engineering that had been constructed in just 24 months. The massive structure housed shipyards, research facilities, and defense platforms that represented the culmination of humanity's transformation from prey to predator. But the most significant aspect of the ring was not its technological achievement, it was what it represented, the first step in humanity's expansion beyond their home system. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the command center of the Prometheus, humanity's first dreadnought-class vessel. Built with a hybrid of human innovation and captured Keth technology, the ship was more than a weapon, it was a symbol of humanity's evolution from a single-world species to a galactic power. The tactical displays showed formations of human vessels preparing for the most ambitious military operation in the species' history, an assault on the Keth homeworld. "Final system checks complete," reported Captain David Park, the ship's commanding officer. "All vessels report ready for jump. Sequence. The fleet is prepared to demonstrate to the galaxy that humanity has claimed its place among the stars." The human fleet that assembled for the assault represented more than military might. It represented the culmination of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn, adapt, and improve at unprecedented speed. every ship in the formation. Incorporated lessons learned from 2 years of warfare. Every weapon system had been refined through combat experience, and every tactical protocol had been developed through the systematic analysis of enemy weaknesses. But the most remarkable aspect of the fleet was its composition. Alongside purpose-built human vessels were captured Keth ships, their systems upgraded with human technology and crewed by human personnel who had learned to operate alien equipment with greater efficiency than its original designers. The hunters had become the hunted, and their own tools had been turned against them. "Jump sequence initiated," announced the navigation officer. "All vessels, prepare for hyperspace transition." The fleet disappeared from Earth's orbit in a cascade of light, leaving behind a world that had been transformed by war. The planet that had been discovered by Keth hunting fleets just 2 years ago was now the center of a rapidly expanding human empire, its people united by the shared experience of survival and the collective determination to ensure that no other species would suffer the fate that had been intended for humanity. The Keth homeworld of Prax had been the center of galactic civilization for 3 millennia. Its cities stretched across continents, its orbital installations dominated the system's space, and its population of billions had lived in the comfortable assumption that they were the galaxy's apex predators. That assumption died the moment human vessels began emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. "Impossible," whispered Supreme Commander Reth as he watched the tactical displays in the Planetary Defense Center. "The humans lacked the resources for such an operation. Our intelligence indicated they were still confined to their home system. The intelligence had been wrong. Humanity's expansion had been conducted with the same systematic efficiency that had characterized their defense of Earth. While the Keth had focused on traditional military targets, human forces had been establishing bases throughout the galaxy, constructing shipyards in hidden locations, and building an industrial infrastructure that could support prolonged military operations. "Sir," reported Defense Coordinator Zek, his voice tight with fear, "the human fleet is not attacking, they're broadcasting." The message that reached every communication device on Prax was delivered in perfect Keth language, but the words came from a human voice that spoke with the authority of a species that had learned to dominate those who had once dominated them. "People of the Keth Empire," the voice announced, "I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Force. For 3,000 years, your species has hunted others across the galaxy, harvesting entire civilizations for your entertainment. You believed yourselves to be apex predators. You were wrong." The broadcast continued, but Supreme Commander Reth was no longer listening. The tactical displays showed the true scope of human preparation. The fleet in orbit was not an invasion. It was a demonstration. Hidden throughout the system were human assets that had been positioned over months of careful planning. Weapons platforms, sensor networks, and support vessels had been deployed with surgical precision, turning the Keth homeworld into a trap from which escape would be impossible. "Your empire ends today," Admiral Chun continued. "But humanity does. Not seek your extinction, we seek your surrender. You have 1 hour to respond." The hour that followed was the longest in Keth history. In emergency sessions throughout the planet, military leaders and government officials debated options that had never been considered before. The Keth had never surrendered to any enemy because they had never encountered an enemy capable of forcing surrender. Their entire civilization had been built on the assumption of perpetual dominance. But the humans had systematically dismantled that assumption. Every technological advantage had been countered, every tactical doctrine had been defeated, and every strategic asset had been captured or destroyed. The species that had been dismissed as primitive prey had become the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. "We surrender," Supreme Commander Reth announced, his voice carrying the weight of a shattered empire. "The Keth Empire yields to human authority." The response came not from Admiral Chun, but from a voice that carried the authority of an entire species united in purpose. "Surrender accepted. The Keth Empire is dissolved. Your species will be relocated to reservation worlds where you will be monitored and restricted. Your technology will be confiscated. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your hunting fleets will be destroyed." But the most significant part of the terms was yet to come. The galaxy will be rebuilt under human administration. The species you have hunted will be liberated. The civilizations you have destroyed will be remembered, and you will learn what it means to be prey. The transformation was completed within 6 months. The Keth Empire, which had dominated the galaxy for 3 millennia, ceased to exist. Its fleets were dismantled, its weapons destroyed. Its leaders tried for crimes against sapient species. The former apex predators were relocated to carefully monitored worlds where they would live under human supervision, their every action observed by the species they had once hunted. But humanity's victory was not merely military, it was philosophical. The galaxy learned that true apex predators were not those who possessed the most advanced technology or the most ruthless tactics. They were those who could learn, adapt, and improve faster than any other species. They were those who could turn their enemies' strengths into weaknesses and their own weaknesses into strengths. The humans had proven that the galaxy's true apex predators had been sleeping on a small blue planet, waiting for someone to make the mistake of waking them. The Keth had made that mistake, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the end, the hunters had learned the most important lesson of all. In the vast darkness of space, there is always a more dangerous predator waiting to be discovered. The Keth had believed themselves to be at the top of the food chain. They had been wrong. Humanity had claimed that position, and they intended to keep it. The hunt was over. The true apex predators had revealed themselves, and the galaxy was theirs.